Hey everybody, we are so excited for our summer kickoff next week on June 10th, which will also be our first time back at JSM. And we wanted you guys to know that the safety of our students is of our utmost concern. And so that's why we wanted to make this video and tell you a little bit about maybe what's going to look different and if there's going to be anything changing as we move forward with JSM. But first I want to talk to you a little bit about how is JSM going to look different. First, next week at our summer kickoff, the entire event is going to take place outside. Students will be able to come inside to use the restroom. So everything next week is going to be outside, so we don't have to worry about any of those, worrying about how many we can fit in the student center or anything like that. Another way that it's going to look different is we are not going to have self-check-in for a little bit. We'll have a volunteer station just so that students aren't touching the iPads or anything and transmitting any germs that way. We'll just have a volunteer at the computer and they'll just be checking everyone in as they come in. Another way that JSM is going to look different, and we're not sure how long this will be for, but we're not going to have the snack shack just because switching money back and forth, it's another way to transmit germs. We want to avoid that as much as possible. Now, like I said earlier, we are going to have 4 square and 9 square, but those are going to look a little bit different. The ball for each of those is going to be sanitized throughout the night. We'll use Clorox wipes, wipe that ball down throughout the night. Another way that it's going to look a little bit different is as students are getting out of the game and as they're coming back in, they'll actually sanitize their hands. Every time they re-enter the game, we'll have a hand sanitizing station. We'll have a volunteer there who is making sure that students are sanitizing their hands each time before they enter the game, because we know how much the students love 4 square, we know how much they love 9 square. We still want them to be able to participate in that, so that's the best way that we think that can work. We also mentioned that we're going to have the Nintendo Switch. It's going to look a little bit different as well, as just like with 4 square and 9 square, and we're going to be sanitizing those controllers for the Switch throughout the night. And we'll actually have students, before they play, each time before they play, they'll sanitize their hands. And again, we'll have a volunteer stationed at the Switch just to make sure that's happening. So those are some ways that JSM is going to look a little different. Some guidelines that we're going to ask students to follow. One thing that you've already heard about with church starting on June 7th is the church is going to be cleaned and disinfected regularly. We're gonna do that. We'll make sure it's clean each week before students enter the building. And so this place is going to be clean and disinfected on a regular basis. It already was before, but now we're just taking that extra care in making sure that things are disinfected and just going that extra step to make sure that this is a safe place for your students. One thing that we're going to ask parents and students is that if students are sick or if they've been in contact with anyone who may have had the virus, we're going to ask them to stay home just to help us out. Stay home if you're sick, stay home if you're not feeling well, or stay home if you know that you've been around anyone with the virus. We're not going to require students to wear masks, but those are optional. If students have masks that they want to wear, they are welcome to do that. We are going to be encouraging social distancing with our students. We're going to ask them to maintain that safe distance from their peers. And once we resume meeting in the Student Center in just a couple of weeks on June 17th, we'll actually have the chairs kind of spread out so that students will be able to maintain that distance as they're sitting in the Student Center. We're going to be asking students to wash and sanitize their hands regularly throughout the night. We're going to ask them to, obviously with this virus, one thing we've learned is that we don't need to touch our hands and our face, and so we are going to ask students to cover their mouths when they cough or sneeze, but we're going to ask them to do that with their elbow, just like we're taught, the little dab cover up. And so we're going to be asking them to do that. We're also going to ask students to avoid using other students' phones or devices, whatever the case may be, because we're just trying to keep kids safe, and that's one way that we can transmit those germs. So we're just going to ask them not to share their phones, not to share any other devices with other students. We're going to be discouraging students from sharing food or drinks, because obviously that's a big way that germs can be transmitted. And so we've already told you about not having the snack shack, so that takes that out of the equation. But next week on June 10th, we're going to have food trucks, we're going to have Kona Ice. We're going to ask that students not share food. Obviously, if they're from the same family, that's fine, but we're going to ask that students not share food with other students at all, whether it's food next week from the food trucks or whether they're bringing food from home. We're just going to ask them not to share that with other students. Now, those are some of the guidelines we're going to have students follow. We'll cover those with them next week at the beginning of our summer kickoff. But we would ask you guys as parents to go ahead and be having these conversations with your kids. Talk to them about social distancing. Talk to them about being careful with how they interact with other students. Just like on Sunday mornings, we're going to ask students not to hug. We're going to ask students not to shake hands. It's just not safe in the environment that we're in right now. So just go ahead and be having these conversations with your students. We also realize that there may be some parents, there may be some students who aren't quite ready to begin meeting in person again, and that is okay. That's okay. We understand that, and that is your decision. So please, if you have questions, if you have concerns, please feel free to reach out. We want to make sure that you feel that your kids are in safe hands each week that they're here at JSM. Thank you.